And they're so in there. There's the little cocoon they're in now. We don't need sissy straps anymore and all those things to hold your head up. Plus, I think you said earlier, hit the G-forces he gets in Formula One. He's certainly used to G-forces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stop signs.
I saw him earlier, and Josh, one of the crew guys, was telling me that he put the pad on the right side, and he told him, "No, I don't think I'll need that." And Josh said, "Okay, I'll keep this handy. In 5 minutes, 5 laps into your first run, I'll put it back in for you." And they did.
Hold him up.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Jill was telling you, right?
Right.
That when he first started, no, I won't need all of that.
Yeah,
I'm going to need that.
He goes, "Oh my God." Canan was talking about the first time he went to an oval. Him and Castroneves they went to Phoenix for an Indy Lights test, and the Indy cars were running, and the USAC Silver Crown cars and the sprint cars were running. It was part of the old copper world, and front engine car. They were hiking their left front wheel going into turn one, and he told Elio, I can't do that. I can't drive a car like that around here. They thought maybe that's what an Indy car hiked the left front wheel, which it did in the old days of Milwaukee when you had cross weight and front engine dirt cars. But I just think there's so much for Alonso to process, and he certainly looks like he handles it pretty well.
Yeah, he's plenty capable.
You mentioned Firebird, and we were talking about biggest days since, and we remembered when Mansell first came here. What about when Senna tested with Penske at Firebird? Was that on the down low? Did you find out about that after the fact, or did we all know about it?
No, that was a pretty good secret.
That's what I thought.
And Emerson tried his best. He was really trying to sell IndyCar racing to Senna. You got to come over here. You got to do this. And Senna, as brave as he was, said he just didn't think he liked ovals. It was like a story I told earlier this morning. There have been a lot of. Alan Jones was a world champion. He took 5 laps at Ontario and said, "I'll see you later. I'm not doing this." So, I think making a guy comfortable. Brian, weigh in on this, but if you're comfortable right off the bat, other than somebody that's going to spook themselves, poor the late Brian Clausen, bless his heart, I think he ran so good that first year he was here, he was in the top 12 every day, and then qualifying he crashed on his 4th lap, and that really hurt his confidence. And then he came back a couple years later, the right rear tire fell off going into turn 3. I don't care who you are, that upsets your confidence, and you're suddenly.
And if it doesn't, you've got issues.
Right, right.
And it seemed like Brian had gotten comfortable by that last season.
Yep. Graham Rahal said last year he thought that he was really starting to get the hang of it.
Well, there have been a couple of Formula One drivers in the last 15 years that have come over and not made the race. Johnny Herbert, I think, was one. Scott Speed was a Formula One driver that tried it for a while and just decided that this. And it may have been that the car wasn't that quick.
Yeah, they didn't have an Andretti or a Penske.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different circumstance.
That helps also. But this guy's not going to come over here and just drive. Somebody just put a team together for 1 year. He's going to give them we're expecting the best, and that's what he deserves.
Absolutely. And it's just a minor observation, but you can also tell a lot of these guys, rookies, veterans alike, when they get out of the car, just watching him earlier today when he came in and got out, you watch what their breathing pattern is and whether they're breathing heavy, and he got out and looked like he had just walked right up to you and could have a conversation without a problem. The other thing you watch is when they're taking their helmet off, you see how much their hands are shaking when they're doing the chin strap. And I'm serious, it's not that big a thing, but you can see some guys when they're getting out, they can't, their hands are shaking so bad they can't even find the chin strap to undo it. None of that. This guy's a cool cat for sure, and plenty comfortable.
So here we go again. Fernando Alonso back out on the 2.5-mile oval at Indianapolis. First on the track this morning at about 10:30 Indianapolis time, Eastern time. It is now nearly 2:40. He's done over 100 laps so far. And he put the scuff set back on, so we would presume he may not be running that hard at this point. Although they did say we want to compare lap times, what it's like in the mixture,
wheel two.
which is wheel 2. That's their rich mixture. And when we hear wheel 5, that means he's going into fuel saving mode.
It was interesting, Eric's comment, you'll feel how much that naturally slows the car down. That's...
When he goes to 5?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing, do you remember when you started in IndyCar? I don't remember.
Did you see that bird right there? There
Yeah.
was a bird on the and you saw him react and respond to it. He moved the car left and probably startled him a little bit out there.
Some guys have been hit before by birds.
Yeah. That looked like a lot different exit to 1 from what he had been running earlier in the day. Still touching bottom a little bit there at the exit of 2. There's one little bump that goes across, and then there's another one right as you enter turn 3, and they're really strange. They're developed in the last couple of years around here, and they're almost like little speed bumps back there at the beginning and end of the back straightaway.
But that's not something you can't pound that out, can you? I mean, you can't.
No, and we've been out looking at it. It's really strange. It's almost like there is an irrigation system to the grass on the inside that crosses over into the track, and I don't know if both places, if it's, if that's come up to the top a little bit or what. But there's just little bitty speed bumps there at the exit of 2 and the entrance of 3. Which was another interesting comment after Marco's runs this morning, and I'm sure, with Alonso watching and he sees the sparks come out a couple of times, that was one of the first questions I heard him ask Marco.
You can go to the left on the weight jacker if you want to try that.
So now he's going to wheel 5, so he's leaning down. This is fuel saving mode, and what Eric was talking to him about, how it will naturally slow the car down, and this is what he'd be using when he's in race traffic trying to save fuel.
And because of the draft that you get in the race in traffic, you can lift sooner and still not lose position and just use that draft to your advantage. And that's the key, is the smart guys at this know when you can do that without losing any pace.
Well, and at Indianapolis, when you've got, 7, 8 pit stops planned throughout the race, if you can run 1 or 2 laps longer on each of your fuel loads, depending on when cautions come out and how it goes, that can make a huge difference at the end of the event for sure.
In last year's race, our co-worker Townsend Bell, who was a race leader early on, made contact with Ryan Hunter-Reay in the pits, but he still contributed mightily to that win because he was a lap down running right in front of Alexander Rossi, and that helped Rossi save the fuel that he needed.
Which is a little bit of the process they're half replicating now with his fuel settings and what they're teaching him and helping him with here, although they don't have the car in front to pull him along.
This is essentially the car that Townsend Bell ran. It was the 29 entry with Andretti Autosport last year. So good for Townsend. It took a 2-time world champion to replace him with the team.
Well, yellow for moisture.
Okay, we're yellow now for moisture.
Which we've been expecting, and this is actually later than what we feared. We were hearing this morning, 2 o'clock, it's 2:45.
And you can see it on the camera lens there. That camera's in turn 4, and you can see the moisture gathering on the lens now.
I haven't seen the radar in a while, but I saw it around noon, and it was very ominous.
Saying it's some rain somewhere on the track.
So now he has experienced everything at 218 or 19 miles an hour, and it starts raining a little bit. And not only has he had the opportunity to experience raindrops, we saw just a moment ago some of the area wildlife. Whoa, that'll catch your attention.
Probably didn't do much for the bird either.
So we'll sit and wait for a moment and see what the weather does and see what the team's plan is. The radar, we're right on the edge. It could go south of us, it could hit us, but there's something in the entire area of central Indiana, but there's a much darker blob that is coming near Speedway, so that is the fun with Indiana weather. I can just accurately say as anyone else, it might rain, it might not rain.
Yep.
And regardless of what happens on track, we're still going to hear again from Fernando Alonso. Robin has already talked with him a couple of times today, but his formal press conference with the assembled media is coming up, and you can see it right here streaming live.
I was going to ask Brian, when do you remember fuel becoming, when's the first time fuel became, I mean, Bill Vukovich and Jack McGrath didn't save fuel, and I don't think Mario did, and Parnelli, and AJ his first couple years. Was it because, is it just because the cars have become so more technical, the fuel cells are smaller, there's, I think I said that to Mike Hall, and he goes, nah, it's got nothing to do with the fuel cells.
I think it has a lot to do with all of it. I think as much as anything else, Robin, to be honest with you, I think it's because of the increase in the depth of competition. You know, you didn't have to save fuel. When the event started, you could figure out pretty quickly there's one or two really good cars today, and that's who you're racing with. You know, we were watching something earlier, and Mark Donohue won by 3 minutes.
Yep.
You don't have that environment now. It's so much deeper in the competition and the competitiveness of the field. It's everything now. I think everything's amplified. The car setup, the fuel is just a component of that, and I think all of it increases. The comments and topics that you touched on are part of it, and I just think the increase in competition adds to it.
Just look at the qualifying speeds over the years. You look at a box score from the 70s and the wide range from slowest to fastest, and now we're talking, you know, sometimes 4 or 5 miles an hour, maybe 7 or 8 miles an hour. So there's not that much difference in a car that is relatively slow. You take one less pit stop than everybody else, you can't make that time back up on the track.
And you know, at IndyCar, we do take a look at the fuel mileage of what the engine manufacturers are producing, and try and create a race that isn't a fuel mileage race. We haven't been as successful at that sometimes, whether that's because we may or may not be getting accurate information from the manufacturers. But the one thing we don't really like to see is that when we drop the green flag and start the race, guys go to a fuel-saving mode. At lap 1, when we take the green and you hear them say wheel 5 or wheel 7 or whatever, that's not where you want to be. That being said, you can't prevent an event turning into just like last year's race.
Last year, you couldn't help that.
Depending on when the last caution comes out, you always have the chance that it can become a fuel mileage race. Yep. But that's one thing. Knowing that it's a fuel mileage race, when they go to fuel saving mode in lap 1, those are the ones that I think we need to do a better job of and change the distance of the event from the outgo, whether you add or subtract laps, to the point where that's not the MO. When you drop the green, you go to fuel saving. If it happens to come out to a fuel mileage race because the caution came out with 35 to go, that's one thing, and you can't control that.
The other thing is, what's tough on television is that you have to talk about it because it's part of the thing. But the last thing a race fan wants to hear is they're saving fuel. Except then a guy like Scott Dixon can still go fast and save fuel.
Right.
It's not just that they backed off and they're running half speed.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Evans was talking with Kevin Blanche, one of the IndyCar tech officials down on pit lane.
But it's clearly an important aspect and component for them in his first day here to be focusing on it and working on it already. It's
unbelievable.
It is.
So they've taken the umbrella away, so whatever raindrops we had did not last long, and they're thinking about releasing him again in the near future, it appears. Back down off the jack. Starter is in place. We're about to go again. No tire change. Still working with one of his 5 sets of Firestone Firehawks.
Brian, can you ever envision telling Firestone, look, your tires are too good. We gotta have more separation. You don't necessarily need it here, but the other night would have been nice. You know, like Iowa, it seems like Iowa that factors into the Iowa race every year. You have conversations with them, like before the season starts at certain places and say, hey, can you give us a little less good tire?
The tire degradation can really make for interesting component of the racing. Like you say, we've had it at Iowa, and you know, Hunter Ray put on a sticker set a couple of years ago and just drove to the front and was very dramatic in doing that. And you watch the tire degradation at Texas the last handful of years, and the fall off and the pit strategy and how that plays into it. It'll be interesting to see if we have that. When we tested Texas in April, they've made some reconfigurations and repaving there, and the grip level in the racetrack, and that track was gripped up the entire time. We didn't see the same tire degradation in the test in April that we've seen at Texas the last few years, so that'll be a little bit of a change. But you're right, you know, Firestone loves being known for what they're known for, and they are the most consistent and the safest and the best race tire in the business. And on one hand, I can see where they're frustrated. If your tire starts falling off in performance, they don't want the negative publicity that potentially could come with that.
Sure.
So the message is important to get people to understand the performance fall off is by design, and it's
right.
and it's in
and
the
the
interest
drivers
of
play along. The drivers know, hey, this is great.
Absolutely.
This is about saving your tires or trying to go see how far you can go.
Yep.
Now, he's going pretty slow here, fellas.
Yeah, they just left and they said wheel 8, so he's obviously in full lean mode, and they're replicating running behind the pace car right now, most likely right at 90 to 100 miles an hour.
And maybe we see a simulated start. Maybe. You know, we were talking about Firestone and tire management, and the impact that Firestone has goes all the way back to the first 500. Firestone was the tire for Ray Haroon. And with an engineering background, he figured out it's not about running as hard as you can the entire race. He determined that if I run at an average speed of about 75 miles an hour, my tires will last longer than everyone else, and I'll take fewer pit stops. So this strategy thing has been there from the very, very beginning.
Well, this has been a productive day for him. For him to get the opportunity to work on fuel runs and to replicate running under yellow and fuel mapping, and it's been very successful for him for sure.
I think about guys that took 2 days to pass the rookie test, or a week, or they struggled, and my God, I mean, he breezed through that thing, you know.
And what we're hearing, he is working on the fuel mapping in a yellow situation, and you saw him weaving there a little bit to warm the tires, as you would see.
As he would do if you're behind the pace car and preparing for a restart. And, you know, it warms the tires. It also scuffs the tires and keeps them clean, because if there's any kind of debris that they run over and they gather up on them when you scuff them like that, it's a good way to knock that off and make sure they're ready for the restart and clean.
And this is
You get
another.
to the line, then go to second gear for your yellow procedure stuff.
And this is another reason why it's valuable to do this today, because no one else ever has the chance to do this, unless you just happen to be the only one out on the track.
Yeah, you can't run like this in May, like you say, because you're not going to be able to do this with the closing rate and other cars at speed. So great experience, great opportunity.
So others have had this opportunity before, as recently as just a couple of years ago with Kurt Busch. Can you recall anyone going through as many scenarios as what we're seeing today?
Actually, I think when Kurt did his ROP and did this, I don't think his race deal was totally done and solidified for running the event later that year. So I think we just put him through his ROP to make him eligible and qualified to run. So they didn't do these things, and it wasn't until a week or two later, I think, that things got solidified for his activity in the event itself. So he didn't do this, and this is the first I've seen anybody have this opportunity and take full advantage with the different aspects that they're employing today, with the fuel saving, the mapping, the practice restarts, the running behind the pace car. He's practicing a restart right there. He's in second gear and coming around. They told him where the zone would be and a little acceleration there, feeling on it. So he's getting a great opportunity to do so that you're not able to do when the track's open to all cars.
Okay, when you get to the line, it'll be middle position on the switch.
A middle position on the switch.
Any idea what that is?
Can only assume it's probably middle position on the fuel switch, but what they were saying earlier, it was wheel 2, wheel 5, wheel 8, so it's different terminology.
I didn't ask him, but I think I'd like to ask him. People talk to him during his races, when in fact his car actually starts the race.
I know.
But driving on an oval at the speeds he's oval, I don't think he's. A lot of guys, like Foyt always said. I said, AJ, how would you have done with a spotter? He said, oh, he would only talk to my ear one time, and I'd throw him off the roof. Because those guys didn't grow up like. So he's had people in his ear before, but maybe they have to be pretty careful because you go into turn at 230 miles an hour. You don't necessarily want somebody.
Yep.
Yelling.
And you often hear Formula One drivers in a race say, "Less talking, please."
Yep.
I heard that again on Sunday morning, late in the stages. We're coming down to the end. Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. We know that
That's the
famous
best
line.
one. I've done this before.
But here it is a constant chatter. Inside, outside, one back, two back, coming on
That's
your
what I mean.
inside.
I mean, that's another thing that he's not.
Yeah, and won't get to. We'll do a little bit of that. The Monday running after qualifying is a good opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah.
A little bit on carb day, he'll get some of that. So he'll get some experience of that before race day, but it's pretty minimal.
Now, this is something that is not just benefiting Fernando Alonso. This would be an example of probably why some of the other teams are not that excited about this opportunity. This is information that will transfer around the team, and they're learning how much fuel saving exactly you're going to get under caution.
It was interesting. When the first couple of laps that he was doing this, now he's diving in off of the backstretch onto the apron in 3. If replicating running behind the pace car, a couple of times in the corners, he was a car width out of the groove. Now, they might want to tell him that's not where you want to be when we're doing this, because with the race running, one car width outside of the groove gets a lot of marbles out there, and if you've got heat in your tires, you want to run in the racing line every time you're doing it. And I was just noticing there a couple of times that he was a little wide behind that, and that wouldn't be the place he wants to be on race day.
He has no idea about marbles and
right.
And yeah, it's a good point.